Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the alien fleet surround them. 12 different types of alien ships formed a circle around the human vessels. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that seemed to bend light itself. Jake had been Earth's top diplomat for 20 years. He had traveled to dozens of alien worlds and made friends with creatures that looked nothing like humans. But today none of that mattered. Today, the Galaxy Council was throwing humanity out of space forever. The main screen flickered to life. High Curator Vexthal appeared, his 6 arms moving in what Jake knew meant displeasure. The alien's skin was deep purple, and his 3 eyes glowed with an inner light. Behind him stood representatives from 11 other alien races. Commander Harrison, Vexthal's voice came through the translator, sounding cold and final. The Galaxy Council has made its decision. Humanity is hereby exiled from galactic civilization. Jake felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. High Curator, surely we can discuss this. Humanity has contributed much to the galaxy. Our scientists have made breakthroughs in medicine. Our artists have created beauty that even your people enjoy. One of the other aliens stepped forward. This was Zarath, a crystalline being from the Etherian collective. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors as she spoke. Your contributions are noted, human, but they do not outweigh your destructive nature. Dr. Lisa Morgan, Earth's chief scientist studying alien life, moved to stand beside Jake. What destructive nature? We've been peaceful members of the galaxy for 30 years. The crystal being's colors shifted to angry red. Peaceful? Your species wages war among themselves even now. You fight over resources, land, ideas. You cannot even achieve unity on your own world. Every species has conflicts, Lisa argued. The Zentari had civil wars. The collective fought themselves before they became a hive mind. But we evolved past such things, said General Korth of the Zentari. His reptilian features were set in disgust. You humans refuse to give up your individual thoughts. You will not join a collective consciousness. You insist on thinking separately, acting separately. This creates chaos, Jake stepped forward. Our individuality is our strength. It lets us solve problems in new ways. It makes us creative and adaptable. It makes you unpredictable, Vexthal said firmly. And unpredictable species are dangerous. We have studied your history, Commander Harrison. In the past 1,000 years, you have fought over 200 major wars. You have created weapons that could destroy your entire planet. Even now, some of your nations point these weapons at each other. We've also created art, music, literature, Lisa said desperately. We've explored the deepest oceans and the highest mountains. We've reached for the stars. And you brought your violence with you? Said Elder Morth of the ancient Vorthok. His voice was like grinding stone. When the Rigel pirates attacked shipping lanes, what did humans do? You did not negotiate or seek a peaceful solution. You hunted them down and destroyed them completely. They were murdering innocent traders, Jake protested. There are always other solutions, the Elder replied. But humans always choose violence. First, you solve problems by breaking things. You think conflict is natural and necessary? Captain Roy Patterson, who commanded the escort fleet, spoke up from his position at the communications station. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from Earth. The President wants to know what's happening. Jake held up his hand. He turned back to the screen. High Curator, give us another chance. Let us prove we can change. Vexthal's 3 eyes focused on Jake with something that might have been pity. Commander, we have debated this for 5 years. Every species on the Council has voted. The decision is final. Humanity is too chaotic, too violent, too unpredictable to remain part of galactic civilization. So you're just going to lock us away? Lisa's voice was growing angry. Treat us like criminals? We are protecting the galaxy, said the crystalline being, and we are protecting you from yourselves. Perhaps in isolation, you will learn to control your destructive impulses. The alien fleet began to move, forming a corridor that led away from the galactic center. Jake realized they were being herded like animals. "This is wrong," he said quietly. "We deserve to be part of the galaxy." "What you deserve and what you have earned are different things," Vexthel replied. "Return to your solar system, Commander. Harrison, a barrier will be placed around your star. Any attempt to leave will result in the immediate destruction of your ships." "You're making a mistake," Jake said. "Someday you might need us." The alien leader's expression didn't change. "That day will never come. Your species is a threat to everything we have built. You bring chaos wherever you go. The galaxy will be safer without you." The screen went dark. Around them, the alien ships began to move, escorting the human fleet away from the galactic center. Jake watched the stars that had become familiar over the past 30 years slowly disappear behind them. Dr. Morgan stood beside him, her hands pressed against the viewing port. 50 colonies, she whispered. Hundreds of research stations. Thousands of humans living and working throughout the galaxy. "They're abandoning all of them?" "They're afraid of us," Captain Patterson said from his position. "I've never seen the Council acts so united about anything." Jake nodded slowly. The alien races had put aside centuries of their own conflicts to exile humanity. What did that say about how they saw human nature? As they reached the edge of Council space, Vexthel's voice came through the communications one final time. "Commander, Harrison, you will find supply ships waiting at the barrier. They contain enough resources to help your people resettle on Earth. After that, you are on your own." "And if we try to leave?" Jake asked. "Then your species will cease to exist," came the cold reply. "Do not test our resolve." The transmission ended. Jake looked out at the stars one last time before they entered the corridor that would take them home. Behind them, the greatest civilization in the galaxy was closing its doors. Ahead lay Earth, alone and abandoned, but as he watched the alien ships escort them away, Jake felt something unexpected. Not just sadness or anger, but determination. If the galaxy thought humans were too dangerous to include, maybe it was time to show them just how dangerous and excluded humanity could become. The journey home would take 3 months. Jake wondered what kind of species they would be when they arrived. 25 years had passed since the last human ship crossed the barrier around Earth's solar system. The energy wall still glowed with alien technology, keeping humanity trapped like animals in a cage. But the humans inside that cage had not been idle. Engineer Ben Carter floated in zero gravity outside the new orbital factory above Mars. Through his helmet, he could see the red planet below, now covered with green patches where the terraforming machines worked day and night. The factory behind them was building something the galaxy had never seen before. "How's the quantum drive looking, Ben?" The voice in his helmet belonged to Director Susan Walsh, who was watching from the control center. Ben ran his gloved hand along the smooth hull of the prototype ship. It was smaller than the old vessels they had used to travel between stars, but it hummed with a different kind of power. "The math says it should work. We won't know for sure until we test it. And if it doesn't work?" Ben smiled inside his helmet. "Then we build a better one. That's what humans do." The ship represented 25 years of desperate innovation. Cut off from alien technology and trade, humanity had been forced to develop everything themselves. They couldn't buy exotic materials from other worlds, so they learned to create them in laboratories. They couldn't trade for advanced computers, so they built quantum processors that thought faster than anything the aliens had shown them. Dr. Amy Collins walked through the medical center on Luna, checking on her latest patients. The moon's low. Gravity was perfect for the new treatments she had developed. Around her, people moved with enhanced strength and speed. Their eyes were sharper, their reflexes faster, their minds clearer. "How do you feel, Maria?" she asked a woman who was sitting up in bed. Maria flexed her hands and smiled. "Like I could punch through steel. Is this really permanent?" Amy nodded. "The genetic modifications are stable. Your body will heal faster, fight off disease better, and stay strong longer. We've essentially given you a better immune system and enhanced physical capabilities. It had taken 15 years to perfect the treatments." Without alien diseases to worry about, Amy and her team had focused on making humans better. Stronger bones, faster healing, improved eyesight, enhanced reflexes. Not everyone chose the modifications, but enough did that humanity was becoming. Something new. General Steve Adams stood in the command center of Defense Station Alpha, watching displays that showed every ship in the solar system. The station was built into an asteroid, hidden and heavily armed. It was one of 50 such stations scattered throughout human space. "Report, Colonel," he said to the officer beside him. Colonel Janet Price pulled up a holographic display. "Oh. Defense grids are active, General. Every civilian station has been hardened against attack. Every transport ship carries weapons. Every human settlement can become a fortress in under an hour." Steve nodded with satisfaction. The Galaxy Council had made one crucial mistake. They thought isolation would make humans weak. Instead, it had made them paranoid, determined, and very well armed. Every human child now learned basic combat skills alongside reading and math. Every engineer could build weapons as easily as tools. Every scientist understood how to turn their discoveries into military advantages. The exile had turned humanity into a species-wide army, but the galaxy was about to face a problem that armies couldn't solve. High Curator Vexthal had aged badly in the 25 years since the human exile. His purple skin had faded to gray, and his 3 eyes no longer glowed with their old light. He stood in the council chamber, listening to reports that made his heart sink. "The outer colonies have gone silent," reported General Korth of the Zentari. "The reptilian scales were dull with stress. No response to our communications for 3 days. Elder Morth of the Vorthak spoke in his grinding voice. "Our deep space sensors detected something before we lost contact. Ships, but not like any we have seen before." Zarath, the crystalline Etherian, changed colors rapidly as she processed information. The collective hive mind reports ... confusion. Terror, something attacked their colony ships, but they cannot understand what they faced. Vexthal felt old and tired. The Council had enjoyed 25 years of peace after removing the chaotic humans. Trade had flowed smoothly. Conflicts had been resolved through careful negotiation. The galaxy had been orderly and predictable. "What do we know about these attackers?" he asked. "Very little," General Korth admitted. "The few survivors describe ships made of crystal, but not like Etherian crystal. Dark crystal that seems to eat light. The ships don't communicate. They just attack and destroy everything." "And consume," added Elder Morth grimly. "The worlds they attack don't just lose their populations. The planets themselves disappear." Consumed down to the core, Vexthal closed his 3 eyes. In his long life he had seen many threats to galactic peace. Pirates, rogue nations, occasional wars between species. But this was different. This felt like the end of everything. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" he asked. "At their current rate of advance, perhaps 6 months," Zarath replied. Her crystal body now a deep blue of despair, the chamber fell silent. 6 months to prepare for an enemy they didn't understand, using tactics that had never failed them before. The Galaxy Council had perfected the art of defense through cooperation, careful planning, and overwhelming force applied with precision, but Ben Carter would have laughed at their plans. In his workshop on Mars, he was perfecting weapons that worked on completely different principles. Instead of overwhelming force, humans built devices that were small, fast, and unpredictable. Instead of careful planning, they prepared for chaos and learned to adapt on the fly. Dr. Collins was developing combat drugs that would let human soldiers fight for days without rest, heal from wounds in minutes, and think faster under stress. The galaxy's other species would have been horrified by such modifications to the natural body. Humans saw them as necessary improvements. General Adams was training troops who learned to fight as individuals rather than units, to make decisions, without waiting for orders, to turn any environment into a weapon. The galaxy's military doctrine was based on coordination and mutual support. Human doctrine was based on individual initiative and creative destruction. As the first reports of The Devourer fleet reached the inner worlds. Panic began to spread through the galaxy. Species that had lived in peace for centuries suddenly faced extinction. Their fleets, designed for show of force rather than desperate combat, crumbled before an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of warfare. And in Earth's solar system, behind the barrier that was meant to contain them, humanity continued to grow stronger. They had been cast out for being too chaotic, too violent, too unpredictable. Soon, the galaxy would learn that these were exactly the qualities needed to survive what was coming. The irony was not lost on Jake Harrison, now an admiral commanding Earth's defense fleet. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the barrier that trapped them, knowing that somewhere beyond it, the galaxy that had rejected them was dying. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're detecting some kind of disturbance near the barrier. Energy signatures we've never seen before." Jake smiled grimly. "Get me General Adams and Dr. Collins. I think our vacation is about to end." The Galaxy Council had wanted to keep chaos out of their orderly universe. Instead, they had concentrated it in one place, refined it, and made it stronger. Soon, they would need that chaos more than they had ever needed anything in their long, peaceful history. The question was whether they would swallow their pride in time to ask for help. The message came through on an old emergency frequency that hadn't been used in 25 years. Admiral Kate Johnson was having breakfast in her quarters when the communication alarm started screaming. "Admiral, to the bridge," came the voice over the speaker. "We have an incoming transmission from outside the barrier." Kate grabbed her uniform jacket and ran. The bridge of the Earth Defense Station was always busy, but now it buzzed with tension. Officers hunched over their screens, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. "Report," Kate ordered as she stepped into the command center. Lieutenant Commander Paul Roberts looked up from his station. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission on the old Zentari diplomatic channel. It's weak and breaking up, but it's definitely from outside our solar system." "The barrier should block all communications," Kate said, frowning. "Yes, ma'am. Whoever sent this used a lot of power to punch through." "And Admiral, the message is in English." Kate felt her pulse quicken. "Put it through." The main screen flickered with static, then cleared to show a reptilian face that Kate recognized. Commander Thektar of the Zentari fleet had been present at humanity's exile. Now his scales were torn and bloody, and his eyes held a desperate fear. "Any human vessels receiving this transmission," his voice was weak and filled with static. "My name is Commander Thektar. My fleet is destroyed. The Devourers have taken the Rigel system. They're moving toward the core worlds." The image flickered and jumped. "We were wrong about your species. We need help. The galaxy needs help. Please, if you're receiving this ... The transmission cut off. The bridge fell silent. "Ma'am," Robert said quietly, "long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures at the barrier. Something big is happening out there." Kate stared at the empty screen. The beings who had exiled humanity were asking for help. Part of her wanted to laugh. Part of her wanted to cry. Most of her wanted to fight. "Get me President Miller," she ordered, "and patch me through to Admiral Harrison and General Adams. Looks like we have a decision to make." President Dan Miller sat in the underground bunker that served as Earth's government center. Around the table sat the most powerful humans in the solar system. All of them were arguing. "They threw us out like garbage," Senator Claire Thompson said angrily. "They'd built a prison around our entire solar system. Now they want our help? Let them burn." "They're facing extinction," argued Chief Science Officer Pete Williams. "Whatever these devourers are, they've already destroyed dozens of worlds. This isn't about revenge anymore." Admiral Harrison leaned forward. "I've seen the long-range sensor data. These devourer ships aren't just conquering worlds. They're consuming them completely. If they finish with the galaxy, where do you think they'll go next?" Senator Thompson crossed her arms. "Through the barrier? The aliens told us it was impenetrable." "The aliens told us a lot of things," General Adams said grimly, "like how they were protecting the galaxy from our chaotic nature. How's that working out for them?" President Miller held up his hand for silence. "The question is simple. Do we help them or not? Sir, Pete Williams said, if we help them, we prove we're not the monsters they thought we were. If we don't, we confirm their worst fears about humanity. And if we do help, Admiral Johnson added, we might learn something about these devourers that could save our own lives. The president looked around the table. All in favor of responding to their call for help? The vote was close, but help won within hours. The first human fleet in 25 years was preparing to cross the barrier. Captain Ryan Burke stood on the bridge of the new human flagship, watching his crew make final preparations. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. It was smaller than the old human vessels, but it moved like a living thing. Its hull shifted and changed color to match the space around it. Its weapons could fire in directions that seemed to violate physics. Captain, his engineer reported, the quantum drive is ready. We can cross the barrier whenever you give the order. Ryan nodded. Behind him, 24 other ships waited. Each one was unique, built by different human colonies with different ideas about how space combat should work. The galaxy's military leaders would have been horrified by the lack of standardization. Human military leaders called it flexibility. All ships, this is Captain Burke, we're about to become the first humans to leave our solar system in 25 years. Our mission is to find the Devourer fleet and learn what we can about them. We're also going to show the galaxy that they were wrong about us. He paused, looking out at the energy barrier that had trapped them for so long. They called us chaotic. They called us unpredictable. They called us dangerous. Today, we're going to prove that sometimes the galaxy needs chaos, unpredictability, and danger. The human fleet activated their quantum drives and disappeared into space that folded around them like water. The barrier that had held them for 25 years might as well have been made of paper. They emerged in what had once been the Rigel system. Now it was empty space with not even asteroids to mark where planets had been. In the distance, they could see the crystalline ships of the Devourer fleet. My God, breathed Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell from the sensor station. Captain, those ships are huge. Each one is bigger than a space station. And there are hundreds of them, added the weapons. Officer, Ryan studied the alien vessels. They were beautiful in a terrible way, made of dark crystal that seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. Sir, the communications officer reported, I'm picking up transmissions from a damaged Zentari ship. It's hiding behind what's left of Rigel's fourth moon. Put them through. The screen showed Commander Thektar again, but now he looked even worse. His breathing was labored, and his scales had lost their shine. Human vessel, is that really you? This is Captain Burke of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your transmission. The Zentari commander's eyes widened. You came. After everything we did to your people, you came. We came to fight the Devourers, Ryan said firmly. Tell me what you know about them. They don't communicate, they don't negotiate. They just consume everything they touch. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls. Their weapons pass through our shields like they're not there. Ryan nodded. What about their tactics? Perfect coordination. They move like they're all controlled by one mind. Every ship knows exactly what every other ship is doing. Our battle computers can't predict their movements because they're too precise. On the tactical display, Ryan could see the Devourer fleet beginning to move toward them. They had been detected. All ships, he ordered, scatter formation. No, 2 ships follow the same course, weapons free. Let's see how they handle chaos. The human fleet exploded outward like a firework, each ship choosing its own path toward the enemy. The Devourers, clearly expecting the humans to maintain formation like every other species, hesitated for just a moment. That moment was enough. The human ships opened fire with weapons that followed no pattern the Devourers could understand. Energy beams curved around obstacles. Missiles changed course mid-flight. Explosions happened in empty space and somehow damaged ships that were nowhere near them. For the first time in their advance through the galaxy, the Devourer fleet took damage. Not much, but enough to matter. Enough to show that they could be hurt, Sir, Sarah called out excitedly, their formation is breaking up. They're trying to adapt to our tactics. Then let's change tactics, Ryan grinned. All ships switch to pattern Chaos 7. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. The human fleet stopped acting like a fleet and started acting like 25 completely independent forces. Each ship fought its own battle in its own way, with its own weapons and tactics. The Devourers, whose strength lay in their perfect coordination, couldn't coordinate against enemies who weren't coordinating with each other. Their computer minds, designed to process logical patterns, struggled to understand opponents who were deliberately being illogical. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 3 human ships were damaged and 1 Devourer vessel was completely destroyed. For the first time since their attack began, the crystalline fleet retreated. Commander Thektar's voice crackled over the communicator. Impossible. How did you do that? Captain Burke looked at the tactical display where the Devourer fleet was regrouping in the distance. We did what humans do best, Commander. We caused chaos. But you're just 25 ships. They have hundreds. Then we'd better get reinforcements, Ryan said. Contact the Galaxy Council. Tell them Earth is back in the fight. The Galaxy Council chamber had never seen anything like it. For the first time in 25 years, a human stood before the assembled representatives of 12 alien species. But Colonel Nick Evans was not there as a prisoner or exile. He was there as the military advisor they desperately needed. High Curator Vexthal looked older and more tired than ever. His 3 eyes focused on Nick with a mixture of hope and shame. Colonel Evans, we have received reports of your fleet's engagement with the Devourer forces. Is it true that you destroyed one of their vessels? Nick stood straight and proud in his dark blue uniform. Yes, High Curator. We also damaged several others and forced their fleet to retreat. Whispers filled the chamber. The crystalline Etherian Zareth changed colors rapidly as she processed this information. How is this possible? Our most powerful weapons barely scratch their hulls. Because you fight like you think, Nick replied. Logically, predictably, the Devourers are perfect at countering logical attacks, but they can't handle chaos. General Korth of the Zentari leaned forward. Explain this chaos. Nick smiled grimly. Every one of our ships fights differently. Our captains make their own decisions. We don't coordinate our attacks because coordination makes us predictable. The Devourers can defend against organized assaults, but they struggle with 25 different fighting styles happening at once, Elder Morth spoke in his grinding voice. This sounds like madness, not military strategy. Sometimes madness is the best strategy, Nick said. You called us chaotic and violent, you were right. But you thought those were weaknesses. Against the Devourers there are greatest strengths. Vexthal raised one of his 6 arms. Colonel, we are prepared to offer humanity full readmission to galactic civilization if you will help us fight this threat. That's not enough, Nick said firmly. We don't just want to be readmitted, we want to be partners, equal partners, and we want to train your forces in human combat tactics. The chamber erupted in protests. The idea of alien species learning human military methods was almost unthinkable. You ask us to abandon thousands of years of military tradition, General. Korth said angrily. Your military traditions are getting you killed, Nick replied. How many worlds have you lost to the Devourers? How many of your people have died while you stick to your careful, coordinated battle plans? The chamber fell silent. The losses had been enormous. Dr. Helen Foster stood in the joint research facility that had been hastily constructed on the neutral world of Kepler-7. Around her, human and alien scientists worked side by side for the first time in 25 years. The cultural differences were obvious and sometimes painful. The quantum resonance frequency is all wrong, complained Dr. Zeth, a collective scientist whose thoughts were shared with thousands of others across the galaxy. The harmonics don't match our calculations. Helen looked at the data on her tablet. That's because we're not trying to match anything. We're trying to create interference patterns that the Devourers can't predict. But the mathematics are chaotic? There's no pattern we can replicate. Exactly, Helen smiled. If we can't replicate it, neither can they. That's the point. She moved to another workstation where engineer Tony Clark was collaborating with a team of collective drones. The drones moved in perfect synchronization, their every action coordinated through their hive mind. Tony, meanwhile, seemed to be working on 3 different projects at once, jumping from one to another whenever inspiration struck. "Tony, how's the quantum virus coming?" Helen asked. "Almost got it," he said, not looking up from his work. "The trick is making it random enough that their crystalline matrix can't adapt, but stable enough that it doesn't just fall apart." One of the collective drones paused in its work. "We do not understand how you can function with such disorganized thinking patterns," Tony grinned. "That's what makes us useful. You guys think in straight lines. We think in spirals, loops, and sometimes we just bounce around randomly until we hit something interesting." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Helen had been studying tissue samples from a destroyed Devourer ship when she noticed something strange. The crystalline structure wasn't just organized, it was perfectly organized. Every molecule was in exactly the right place. Every energy pattern flowed in exact harmony. "It's too perfect," she muttered, staring at the data. "What did you say?" asked Dr. Vorth, an Etherian scientist whose crystal body resonated with harmonic frequencies. "Their structure is too perfect. There's no room for variation, no tolerance for error. If we could introduce just a tiny bit of chaos into their system." She turned to Tony, who was still working on his quantum virus. "Tony, what if we don't try to destroy their ships directly? What if we infect them with randomness?" Tony's eyes lit up. "Helen, you're brilliant. If we can inject random quantum fluctuations into their crystal matrix, their perfect order would start breaking down. But how do we deliver such a virus?" Dr. Vorth asked. Helen and Tony looked at each other and smiled. "Human genetics," they said together. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the joint human-alien task force was learning to fight together. It was not going well. Colonel Evans watched as a mixed squadron of human and Zentari ships tried to execute a simple flanking maneuver. The Zentari ships moved in perfect formation, following the battle plan exactly. The human ships scattered in all directions, each captain interpreting the orders differently. The result was chaos, but not the useful kind. The 2 groups of ships got in each other's way, their attacks canceled each other out, and the Devourers easily destroyed 3 vessels. "This isn't working," said Commander Veltar, the Zentari squadron leader. "Your ships are too unpredictable. We can't coordinate with forces that won't follow orders." "And your ships are too rigid," replied Captain Lisa Brown of the human destroyer. "Defiance. You're so busy following the plan that you can't adapt when the enemy does something unexpected." Nick stepped between them. "You're both right. And you're both wrong. We need to find a middle way." Over the next weeks, something remarkable began to happen. The alien forces started to loosen up their rigid structures, allowing individual ship captains more freedom to make decisions. The human forces learned to communicate their intentions better, giving their alien allies some idea of what they were planning. The result was a new kind of military unit that the galaxy had never seen. Organized enough to work together, chaotic enough to stay unpredictable. General Scott Davis commanded the first truly integrated battle group in galactic history. His fleet contained ships from 6 different species, each fighting in their own style but coordinated through constant communication and mutual adaptation. "All ships were approaching the Devourer fleet at Altair," he announced. "Remember, stay flexible. If something isn't working, try something else. If you see an opportunity, take it. Don't wait for orders." The Zentari commanders looked uncomfortable with such loose instructions. The human captains grinned with anticipation. The battle that followed changed everything. The Devourers, expecting either perfect coordination or complete chaos, found themselves facing something they couldn't understand: organized chaos. The Allied fleet fought with discipline, but also with creativity, following general strategies while improvising specific tactics. For the first time since their invasion began, the Devourers not only took heavy losses but actually retreated from a system they had been consuming. The planet Altair 7 was saved, and its population got to watch as the crystalline ships fled into deep space, but the victory came at a price. The more the alien species adopted human methods, the more they began to change. Zentari captains started questioning orders. Collective drones began to think independently. Etherian crystals developed individual personalities. The Galaxy Council that had exiled humanity for being too chaotic was learning that chaos might be exactly what the universe needed. The question was whether they could handle becoming chaotic themselves. As General Davis watched the Devourer fleet disappear into hyperspace, he wondered what kind of galaxy would emerge from this war. It wouldn't be the same one that had cast out humanity 25 years ago. Whether it would be better or worse remained to be seen, but one thing was certain. The galaxy would never again underestimate the power of beautiful, creative, necessary chaos. Dr. Mary Watson stood in the command center of the research station orbiting what used to be the Devourer homeworld. Around her, screens showed the final results of the quantum virus that had ended the war. The crystalline ships that had threatened to consume the entire galaxy were now dissolving into beautiful, swirling clouds of quantum energy. "It's really over," said Dr. Vorth, the Etherian scientist who had helped develop the virus. His crystal body glowed with colors that Mary had learned meant amazement and relief. "Not over," Mary corrected gently. "Changed. Everything is changed now." She was right. The quantum virus had done more than destroy the Devourer fleet. It had transformed the very nature of the space they had occupied. Where once there had been dead systems consumed down to their cores, now there were regions of pure possibility, where matter and energy existed in states that defied normal physics. Captain Sarah Brown piloted her exploration ship through one of these quantum zones. Her crew, a mix of humans and aliens who had learned to work together during the war, watched in wonder as space itself seemed to flow around them like liquid. "Captain," reported her science officer, Lieutenant Kevin Murphy, "I'm reading something impossible. The destroyed planets are still here, but they exist in multiple states at once. It's like they're both gone and not gone at the same time." Sarah nodded. Only human minds seemed able to navigate these quantum zones safely. The alien crew members found the shifting realities confusing and frightening, but humans had always been comfortable with contradictions and uncertainty. "Set course for the coordinates Dr. Watson provided," Sarah ordered. "Let's see what's left of the Devourer homeworld." What they found there changed everything they thought they knew about the universe. The planet existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously destroyed and whole, dead and alive, consumed and pristine. As Sarah's ship approached, the planet seemed to choose which state to exist in, settling into a version that was beautiful beyond description. "Captain," whispered Ensign Zara, a young Zentari who had never seen anything like this, "it's responding to us. The planet is changing based on our presence." Sarah smiled. "Not our presence, our expectations. Our ability to accept that something can be multiple things at once." On the surface, they found the ruins of the Devourer civilization, but they also found something else. Cities that existed in quantum flux, buildings that were simultaneously ancient and newly built, art that told the story of a species that had achieved perfect order and then been destroyed by it. "They were like us once," Dr. Watson explained. When Sarah reported back, "Individual beings with chaotic thoughts and unpredictable behavior, but they chose order over chaos, perfection over possibility. In the end, their own perfection made them vulnerable to the one thing they couldn't understand, randomness." President Dan Miller stood before the reformed Galaxy Council, but this was not the same council that had exiled humanity 50 years earlier. The representatives who sat before him had all been changed by their contact with human methods. High Curator Vexthal still had his 6 arms and 3 eyes, but now he spoke as an individual rather than as the voice of collective decision. "President Miller, on behalf of the new Galactic Federation, I formally apologize for our treatment of your species. We were wrong about the nature of chaos and its role in the universe." "You were scared," Don replied. "Fear makes everyone do foolish things, even humans." Elder Morth of the Vorthak, whose species had existed for millions of years in unchanging tradition, had perhaps changed the most. We have learned that order without chaos leads to stagnation. Stability without change leads to death. Your species taught us that imperfection is not a flaw but a feature of life itself. Zarath, the crystalline Etherian, now displayed patterns of color that were unique to her rather than shared with her collective. The new Federation will be built on what we call the human principle, the idea that diversity of thought and approach makes us all stronger. Dan nodded. What about the quantum zones? What do we do with space that exists in multiple states at once? We explore it, said Dr. Collins, who had been working with teams of hybrid human-alien scientists. The zones seem to respond to consciousness, especially human consciousness. We think they might be doorways to other realities, other possibilities. Admiral Kate Johnson, now commander of the Integrated Federation Fleet, had spent months exploring the quantum zones. We found things in there that shouldn't exist, she reported. Planets that were destroyed centuries ago, but are somehow still inhabited. Species that evolved along completely different paths. It's like the zones contain all the possibilities that were ever discarded or lost. Captain Ryan Burke, whose first victory against the Devourers had started the turnaround, now commanded the Federation's first truly integrated starship. His crew contained members from 15 different species, all working together in organized chaos. The zones are stable as long as humans are present to navigate them, he explained. Our ability to hold contradictory ideas in our minds simultaneously seems to be the key. Where other species see impossibility, we see opportunity. But the most remarkable discovery came from the children. Commander Jake Harrison, now old and gray but still sharp, watched as the first generation of human-alien hybrid children played in the gardens of New Geneva, the Federation's new capital. The children were something entirely new, combining alien logic with human intuition, collective thinking with individual creativity. They're going to be incredible, said Dr. Collins, who had overseen the genetic research that made such hybrids possible. They have the best qualities of all our species. Jake smiled as he watched a human child and a young Zentari work together to build something that was part sculpture, part machine, and part living plant. They're not just hybrids, he realized. They're the future. The child looked up at him, with eyes that held both human curiosity and alien wisdom. Grandpa Jake, look what we made. The creation they had built shouldn't have been possible according to any known laws of physics. It existed in multiple states at once, was both organic and mechanical, served both artistic and practical purposes. It was beautiful, functional, and completely chaotic. It was perfectly human. Years passed, and the galaxy continued to change. The rigid boundaries between species began to blur as more beings learned to embrace controlled chaos. Trade flourished not through careful regulation, but through creative adaptation. Art became more vibrant as alien artists learned to value individual expression. Alongside traditional forms, there were problems, of course. Some species struggled with the transition from order to organized chaos. Some humans had to learn that a little structure wasn't the enemy of creativity. The quantum zones remained dangerous for those who couldn't handle contradictory realities, but the galaxy was alive in a way it hadn't been for centuries. New ideas sparked constantly. Innovations came not from careful committee deliberation, but from individuals having sudden inspirations. Problems were solved not through consensus, but through creative disagreement that led to unexpected solutions. High Curator Vextol, now an old friend rather than a former enemy, visited Earth. On the 50th anniversary of humanity's return to galactic civilization, he stood with Jake Harrison on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, looking down at the blue-green world that had been humanity's prison and was now the galaxy's inspiration. "Do you ever regret it?" Vextol asked. "Via exile. I mean, the 50 years your people spent alone?" Jake considered the question carefully. "Those years made us who we needed to become. If you hadn't exiled us, we might never have developed the technologies and attitudes that saved the galaxy." Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing in disguise. Vexthal's three eyes focused on the children playing in the station's gardens below. Human and alien children learning together, creating together, becoming something new together. "We called your species chaotic," he said quietly. "We were terrified of your unpredictability, your refusal to conform, your insistence on thinking as individuals rather than as collectives. And now?" Jake asked. "Now I understand that chaos isn't the opposite of order. It's the force that prevents order from becoming stagnation. Your people don't destroy structure, you evolve it. You don't eliminate rules, you find creative ways around them when the rules stop serving life." Jake nodded. "We learned something during our exile too. Chaos without any structure is just destruction. But structure without any chaos is just death. The trick is finding the balance." As they watched, one of the hybrid children laughed with pure joy at something she had discovered. The sound echoed through the station, carrying with it all the hope and possibility of a galaxy that had learned to embrace both order and chaos, structure and flexibility, tradition and innovation. The Galaxy Council had exiled Earth because they feared human unpredictability would destroy their ordered universe. Instead, it had saved that universe and transformed it into something better than anyone had ever imagined. The laughter of children playing in the space between stars was a sound the galaxy had never heard before humanity's exile. Now it was a sound the galaxy could no longer imagine living without.